And this is Brian with Making Strides. We're just going to release the third video for our series here. This video is going to take a look at AJHL defenseman out of the Spruce Grove Saints organization, also a draft eligible prospect for the NHL this upcoming year. Ethan Edwards. This video is from a few years ago when he was a defenseman with NAX, so I'm just going to let you watch through the video first here. We're just going to specifically look directly at the start. That last video we looked at, we talked a little bit about it during the Jack Sander clip, but here we're going to go into a little more detail. So if you watch the backwards crossover start here, the first thing I want you guys to kind of notice is, I know that there's a lot of different philosophies on backwards starts, but the one thing we really want our athletes to try to focus on with their backward starts is putting themselves in a position to generate speed off the start while also maintaining a very linear pattern. So what I mean by that is, if you kind of look at this arrow that I've drawn here just directly through him, the more control we have of the east-west movement or the side-to-side movement, the better off this start is. So if you watch the clip here, you're going to see that the toe caps stay very close to this blue line all the way through, and when he comes out of the end, he's basically directly in line with where he started. So again, the number one thing that's going to do is it's going to put him in a really good position to get through the testing space that we've highlighted here, which if you look just on the side over here, this is actually a 20-foot testing space which we use for our testing. So here again, the more linear we can be, the faster we can get through that testing space. In theory, the faster we're going to get down the ice. So again, if you look at the pattern for comparison, if his path is here, somebody who kind of comes out wider and then swings back to the middle will cover a lot more ice and therefore typically be a lot slower getting to a spot on the ice, which is, again, that 20-foot space we talked about. So next thing I want you to kind of watch for as you get through here is the first movement that you see out of this athlete is, again, number one, getting nice and low, obviously, but I want you to watch how he uses this right foot. Again, I'll just kind of point an arrow at it here. Uses that right foot as his first push. So there's a slight knee bend there. We're going to see that good snap push off through to extension. And what this is also going to do is you're going to see everything starts moving north down the ice, just following those two arrows. So again, you can see the body lean starts to get created. He's just trying to launch himself off, which is going to allow him to generate a ton of length on this first step. So if you look at the video on the left, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So where that front foot is and where this testing space is actually an 18-inch space. So for him here, if you kind of visualize the length of this first step, he's probably covering close to 24 inches or 2 feet on that first step. So again, the number one thing we think about with our forwards on the forward start is to not sacrifice the length on those first couple steps. So same thing here has to be for our D-man. So if he's trying to match a forward speed, we can't take these really short, choppy strides. We still have to try and generate length. How we generate that length is, again, pushing off with the back foot, number one. Number two, creating the body lean down ice. And number three, you're going to notice that when he steps, very similar to when we get into the forward start, is you're going to see that plant foot is going to land right underneath him. And as soon as it lands, he takes that second step. Okay, this is where there's a little bit of, I guess, difference between some people in terms of what they like to see. If I need to generate speed on my backwards crossover start, I do want to see the athlete take 2 crossovers, sometimes even 3 if we really need to generate speed. And you'll see that kind of more in like a walking the line type situation for D-men. But if we don't need to generate speed and we just need to worry about kind of gap control and position on the ice, then we might see a defenseman typically use that 1 crossover. So I think there's a little bit of discrepancy between situation-specific examples. But here again, we're trying to generate speed, so I do like to see the second crossover. The second thing that you'll notice that he does a really good job of here is that second step is primarily down ice. You can see how he's really grabbing. If you look at the video on the left, he's really grabbing and trying to get out into this direction that arrow's pointing. As opposed to if we look at the video on the right, we can see there's just a very small east-west portion that he's stepping. So again, the more our movements can generate the north-south direction, the better off we're going to be on this step. Again, excellent I forgot to mention back here, but excellent under push on that left leg. Again, full extension off the right foot. And then again, next push, excellent extension. Might be a little bit easier to see over on the left video here. Excellent extension to that under push. And all these pushes, he does a great job of pushing all the way through full blade at this point. If I just zoom in. So full blade and then snap through to the toe at the very end. The second thing you might notice, kind of if you watch this, and what we try and get our D-men to do is that first crossover, you're going to see that the shoulders will start to kind of rotate. The hips stay fairly square, and then that second crossover, this is where we see the finishing or the complete rotation happen to where we square up to where we're going. Again, just come back one last time. Again, it's also important to note how much ice he's able to cover on both these steps. So that crossover space, like I said, the test is 20 feet. During these first two crossovers, to the point where you get to right here, he's almost covered probably 14 to 15 feet of that 20 feet just in those two crossovers. Again, now it's just right into a smooth transition of C-cuts. Last time through, we'll just watch it kind of at full speed. What you'll notice is it's very fluid, it's very smooth, and there's a lot of ice being covered. If we just take a quick look at the other side, I always like to have my D-men do both sides. This is a bit of a unique example. We were kind of experimenting a little bit with what the stick position might do. So you might actually notice on this clip, he's actually holding the stick in the opposite hand, which is just trying to get the stick further away from the timing lights, just to see if that might play a factor in terms of the defenseman's testing time. So if we get this other side, this is probably a little bit weaker for him, but again, it's very similar. You're going to see that that left foot now go into pretty good extension. We see that good body lean being created. We still see a pretty good under push. The one thing I think I would notice right away is he gets a little bit taller on this side, and as a result of that extra height, now that really good step we saw down ice, we're getting a little bit shorter as we look over here. And then same thing on the other side. Now we're seeing a little bit more of that step kind of be east-west. So we're not quite as linear in terms of our direction on this side, which typically with our weaker side, we're not going to be quite as good. If you remember that line I drew in the very first video, kind of straight down ice, you're going to see how there is a little bit more drift away from that line on these first couple of steps. And he gets a little bit out of control through this space. And we've covered more of an S shape where we've come out and back, as opposed to the first clip where we saw him kind of just follow this nice curved path on the way back. And if we just come back one more time, still a really good job. I mean, the extension's really good. The body lean is still pretty good. We just see this a little bit more short and a little bit choppier, as opposed to that really fluid movement we see on the strong side. Again, if you have any questions for me, reach out to my website, www.makingstrides.com, or send us an email, brian@makingstrides.com.